Now, obviously, the running time is something that I was so fascinated by. Because when I first heard that it was like an hour and 47 minutes, I thought that was really interesting because usually movies are based in a World War II setting are like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I'm curious, was that something you intended on from the beginning? Because to me, when you're watching it, I'm like, this is a perfect length. But I'm curious, is that what you always intended to be under 2 hours?
I wanted it to be as intense an experience as possible, and therefore as lean and stripped down and short an experience as possible. You can only sustain the degree of suspense and tension that we wanted from the film for so long before you exhaust the audience. I think perhaps, people hearing that I was doing a film about Dunkirk, particularly British people who know the story already, thinking big historical epic, they're imagining a 3-hour film with a lot of talk and all the rest. What I did is I wrote a script that was 76 pages, just really half the length of my other screenplays, because I didn't want to tell the story in words. I didn't want the theatrics of people telling the audience why you should care about them. I wanted to care about them just because of the physical situation that they were in. And in that way build up a subjective experience of the events at Dunkirk that would hopefully have a cumulative quality, emotional quality through the course of the film. It would pay off at the end of the film without ever being overly theatrical or sentimentalizing these real life events. The paradoxical physical situations that people were in Dunkirk, the overall situation itself of the 400,000 men who practically within sight of home can't get there. That was the driving force for this kind of subjective storytelling, and that was what I wanted to get across more than anything that would be overly, I suppose, theatrical. And so the relentless pacing of it and the stripped down nature of it was something that I was very determined to stick with right from the beginning before I wrote the script. I
was reading this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Zimmer took the ticking from your own watch to make the sound of the ticking in the movie. He synthesized it. Can you tell me that story? I mean, I'm a big Zimmer fan. I love how you use his score as a leading character. To me, it's one of the leading characters in the film. Do you have the watch on today? What watch did he use it
I don't.
from?
It's actually a pocket watch of mine. I have a bunch of different watches, and this is a particular pocket watch, and I made a series of recordings of different watches and different ticking sounds because I wanted that to be the sort of seed that the whole score would grow from. And then I handed those over to Hans, the best one in particular. He then took it and was able to synthesize it so he could manipulate it in different ways, and it sort of creates the template or almost the tempo map for the entire score and the entire film.
When you're showing the action sequences, you go from the 65 to the IMAX shots. And I'm curious, I know the editor Lee Smith does that a lot in editing, but I'm curious, when you're shooting on the day, how do you decide what shots will be 65 millimeter and what shots will be IMAX?
It's been different on the different films where we've mixed formats. On this film, we chose to mix our IMAX 70mm photography with 5-perf 65mm photography, which is closer in resolution than the usual 35 that we've used in the past. So we didn't worry as much in production about mixing the formats. We try to choose particular types of scene that will lend itself to one format or the other. The overriding impetus for mixing the formats is that the IMAX camera is so loud. Doing intimate dialogue scenes with it can be very challenging. I don't like to ADR dialogue, I don't like to add it afterwards. I like to use the real recordings. So that pushes you, the scenes on the boat, for example, on the Moonstone, where you're in very intimate settings, that pushes you towards the 65mm format so you can get better recordings. And then in the edit suite, what we're deciding is what aspect ratio we assign to each scene and when we blow out bigger and when we come in smaller. It's generally something we do towards the end of the process as we've really found the shape of the film.
I mean, have you guys seen it in 70?
No.
Okay, the 70mm.
60 or 65,
It's absolutely incredible. It's one of the most immersive experiences. And then Hans Zimmer's music, the score. I think he took Chris's clock.
And that was there from the start as well.
Cool. Well, first of all, congratulations to you guys. I'm geeking out to be here. I know that Nolan does a lot of things in camera, which is the coolest thing. Can you talk about filming the underwater sequences and how those...
One second.
Damn it. Yeah. It's Harry's fault.
You're too tall, man.
It's Harry and Finn's fault.
Sorry.
Come on, guys.
Always.
Say your name and
All right, here we go. All right, Kevin McCarthy, Washington, D.C.
anytime.
All right, so I'm a big fan of Christopher Nolan, the way he does his special effects in camera. You look at The Dark Knight when he flipped that 18-wheeler, all those things. But he actually had you guys underwater in these underwater sequences. Talk about filming that. How long were you actually under, and was there somebody bringing you guys oxygen? How does that work when you're shooting a scene like that in the movie world?
I think it was, you know, it was like filming, and then between takes you'd come up, and I think they were like short bursts. Obviously, the action was so intense and quick.
Yeah.
It was very intimate. I'd say. You know, they flooded the thing, and it was us and a camera and a couple of crew in there, and you know, it was good. It was fun.
Yeah, I think it's surprisingly simple. I think it looks a lot more complicated than it is, but it's really just ducking under the water for about a minute or something with a camera in a case that they just...
3 minutes.
I mean, sorry, 10 minutes? Yeah, you learned to...
25.
I'm half dolphin now.
PG-13 films, you generally only get 2 F-bombs in a movie. You get the 2 F-bombs in
I think
the
I
film.
used them all.
I'm
Yeah.
curious, did you know that when you were filming that you were getting the 2 F-bombs? And like, how does that make you feel that you have the only 2?
Yeah, it makes me feel really cool. No, I don't think both of them were in the script, actually. I think Chris creates these worlds around you where you don't really feel like you have to act that much. He makes it really instinctive. And I think the amazing thing with him is that for such a large scale of a film, and you know, the movie kind of making process in general, is that you never feel like you're in this massive thing. He makes it super intimate, and it's kind of you and the camera, and he's right next to the camera. And I think it just kind of carries you, you know, you get a little carried away a little bit. He makes it easy for you to just be very much immersed in it.
Yeah.
And one of them I don't think was in. I think it's just, you know, he makes this world where you kind of react so naturally to something, and yeah, I used him up, unfortunately.
All right, so I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan. I love how he does a lot of his effects in camera, and I know the flying sequences and the being on the boat. Can you talk about, I guess specifically with you first of all, didn't he have you on a gimbal with water in the background to make it look like you were actually above water? Can you talk about filming those scenes and how you were moving?
Yeah, I mean, Chris. The movement in the cockpit, that is actually Chris. Chris is moving the cockpit.
He's operating it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And like, if you had to get hit by something, Chris threw it.
He was doing that with the Moonstone as well. He was rocking it side to side, like, you know, he really was participating.
He's literally made the film.
Yeah.
He literally makes it.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Now, being on the boat, though, I know a lot of it was filmed actually on water. Most of it was. All of it was, yeah. Talk about, obviously, being on the water all day long. Did it help you actually stay in character longer to be out there on that boat like that? Can you talk about what your circumstances were like?
Yeah, the most amazing day on that boat was going out of the Dunkirk harbor along the side of the pier, the mole, I think they call it, and going out around it and being, you know, 200 or 300 yards off of the beach, right where the thing happened. And there are still boats and ordnance and things sunk beneath you. And going back and forth when we were first learning how to do the boat, and I think we filmed there too, being in the very space where it happened, that was really freaky.
Presence.
That was very freaky.
Now, I saw the film last night. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. You were behind me in the theater last night. Talk about your experience watching it on a 70mm IMAX screen.
Yeah.
And then obviously you were there shooting it, but what was it like to see it on the screen like that?
Yeah, to see it was like I was filming it again. I'm not even messing. Like, you know, the plane sequences especially, like, you know, when it was touring, I was like, you know, I was going, all right, I can't turn my head that much, but like, it was just, you were there, and I hope it does that for lads my age at home as well. Brings the youth, like the young lads into it, and lets them realise and show what Dunkirk was. And because I had no clue, I did have a clue, but I wasn't aware of the whole thing of Dunkirk, you know.
Yeah. And can you talk about, like, obviously a lot of your scenes are with Tom Hardy, but you guys are in separate planes. Can you talk about when you guys were shooting those moments with the water behind you? Was Hardy there with you, or were you actually speaking with him? How did those scenes work?
Yeah. Sometimes, we were. Yeah. I mean, like, if I was off camera when he was on camera, like, I was hooked up. We were talking to one another. It was a lot of fun, that.
You were saying you can see each other's eyes when you're flying together.
Yeah, actually, when we went up in the air with actual Spitfires, you know, they're like 10 feet from each other. That's how close they can fly to one another.
Oh my
And
god.
you can see in the eye of the other pilot.
You and T-Dog are mates now, aren't you?
Me and T-Dog.
Yeah, you're mates.
Yeah, me and T-Dog. Yeah, big time.
T-Dog.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what he calls him.
Tom Hardy does love dogs. And there's like a whole Instagram dedicated
cool.
to him and his dogs, so it's really funny.